Charles, in all the excitement of how stupid Joe Biden is, I forgot to tell you something very important. I've made an executive decision. Some people were upset that it took us too long to close in. And also now, because you're in an undisclosed international location, I've changed the name of the show to Charles Ortel is Overseas, because it's true, and you are. How are you, Charles?
Well done. That is true. I am well overseas. I'm about, without giving exactly away where I am, I'm between 10 and 13,000 miles away from you.
Wow.
And that is a long way, let me tell you.
People can kind of tell because you look a little bit extra squishy on the internet today. So if there's any kind of like stepping on of the conversation, I hope people understand there's kind of a long delay. But it truly is amazing that we can have this kind of international virtual tete-a-tete, Charles. And the other thing that I didn't get a chance to tell you, because our creative process is affected a little bit by this gigantic mass of ocean and land that now separates us. I came up with this idea to call today's show The Grandfather Part 3, because I don't know if you remember Godfather Part 3, what that was about. But of course, the issue there was, Michael Corleone, Charles, he was trying to get out and then they bring him back in. And this is sort of the opposite, because Joe Biden is an idiot and he was trying to stay in and they said, hit the bricks, Grandpa, get the hell out of here. And they were just totally threw him out.
Well, when you bring up the mafia, and it's a good thing actually that you come up with this, and the art department has embellished it for you. I'm kidding, of course. Is that loyalty is very important, not loyalty without honor, and mafia is not loyalty with honesty, but loyalty is important. And looking at this, as bad as Joe Biden actually is, and he's really an awful cur of a man at this point. I mean, he's no longer amiable, genial, the avuncular uncle or grandfather anymore. This guy's a piece of shit, frankly. The way he treats his family, the way he treats Americans, the way he treated the military, the way he treated his daughter, allegedly, in her own diary. I mean, this is not somebody who deserves any sympathy at this point. But you look at what the Democrats have done to him. If they're going to do this, and if they can do this to a sitting president, what the hell are they going to do to an average American? Particularly an American who's not sympathetic to the Democrat Party. So, I just look at the shit show, and I'm not a huge fan of on the cable networks, and I guess on the mainstream networks, they had these various reality TV bake-offs of Bachelor and Bachelorette and all this kind of crap. That shit is more interesting than this DNC garbage. And you could sit there and you could have a fable. Reagan was very good at coming up with fables and warm stories and stuff like that. And there's a lot of American recent history. There's a mythology about it. The Greatest Generation. We won World War II alone without Russia or without the Soviet Union. It's not true. And so I can excuse a lot of this mythology until you start tell me in the middle of this shit show that all this victory lapping over increasing the number of jobs under this guy and Harris and their team of morons is actually wrong. Their own government is now saying that they overstated jobs by 800,000. So as bad as it was before, when people were saying, yes, there is an increase in the number of reported jobs, but when you dive below the surface and you look, how many of those new jobs are being taken by illegal immigrants? How many of them are full-time? How many of them are part-time? How much time did Latrine spend in those press conferences bragging about the great jobs reports? And now we learn just before the election, thankfully, that it's all bullshit. And this is not minor. I mean, the way I look at life, the cost of government is borne mostly by the private sector. And I say that because when you push up the cost of making goods and then providing services inside the borders of the United States, other countries around the world have a greater ability to compete effectively against American companies. And so, we pumped up the cost of government, starting with Bush, but really accelerating under the dimwit Obama and his team of morons, and then even further under this nutcase, Biden and Harris. And now we learn that actually the private sector job numbers, or the job numbers that they've been crowing about, are wrong. What else is wrong? Probably everything. Probably the estimates of inflation are wrong. Probably the cost of these various military adventures is understated. Probably the cost of these recovery programs that they talk about, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is total bullshit. You look at this, and at a certain point, you gotta hurl listening to these people, speaker after speaker, talking about, some would say I'm the decent person. No, you're not. You're a fucking loser who somehow managed to acquire 4 mansions: Hawaii, Chicago, DC, and Martha's Vineyard. 4 freaking mansions, many of them on the beach. You're so concerned about freaking climate change. Very few of the billionaires that I do know, I'm bragging a bit, but I do know quite a few billionaires, very few of them have 4 mansions on the beach. And so how did these people who've never really spent any time in the private sector, how did they acquire enough money, A, to pay for these things, but more importantly, B, to maintain them? And why did 2 grown adults need 4 mansions?
Well, Charles,
and then you're going to lecture
thing.
me about I'm not decent?
Yeah, along the lines of what she was saying, didn't Michelle Obama says that she was taught to hate people who take more than they need? Meanwhile, as you're saying, they have these gigantic mansions. Why don't they just get some 2,000 square foot condo in Maryland and live there?
2,000 is big. I mean, these people are so out of touch with reality, right? If you go and you look at the consumer expenditure survey, which maybe we can do in the First Amendment forum, or maybe not, as you see fit, the average pre-tax income for a family of 4, which is the number I think that they do for the whole country. They also do it by 10% slices of the country, is on the order of $75,000 a year pre-tax. And you're saying that somehow life isn't fair because you only have 4 mansions worth an aggregate of, I don't know, $50 million on the strength of never having worked in a real job anywhere inside the United States of America? You're somehow feel aggrieved because you go give a speech in Germany and make $850,000 in 1 hour?
Did that happen?
Bullshit speech about diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Michelle Obama got $850 for 1 hour for a speech? That's crazy. Is this the Consumer Confidence Index, Charles? Is that what you want?
No. Consumer Expenditure Survey. Consumer Expenditure Survey. And it just pull up the one that does it by deciles.
Oh, yeah, that one, of course.
Well, no, that's important because it shows.
But I mean, I have no idea. There's a million
the average
things
across
here.
The whole population of the top. Yeah, and I can't see it, unfortunately, but it's if you go down, it's data. Look across the top there. There's data
retrieval tools. It says BLS popular series report, top picks, one screen, multi-screen maps, data finder, public data, API, charts of economic news, CPI, inflation. Tell me what you're looking for, and I'll see if I see it here. U.S. economy at a glance.
It's the household survey.
Maybe we'll go over this during the interstitial period and try to figure it out. But hopefully, Charles, when you land in your permanent new installation there, we'll get you all set up with a big TV so you can see this screen share. I have a very good idea for how we're going to do that to bring the interactivity back, and then we'll maybe change the name again to something else.
Yeah, actually, I've already got 2 big TVs, 165, 155. So that's all set. But anyway, we don't need the survey to make the point. The top 10% now, the richest 10% of all households makes an average, and that's the very rich skew this average upwards, but make an average of like $300,000 a year pre-tax, right? So if the bottom 90% are not even making $300,000, how do these goons who have done more to harm Black people and people of color and people without college educations, how do these goons get off complaining about having only 4 mansions on the strength of never having done anything productive? And then to go and sit there, everyone has his or her own personal experience, but I happen to have been raised by 2 highly educated people, one with 3 degrees from Yale, another with 2. And my father, his discipline was nuclear physics, which is not kind of social science or something. That's hard stuff. My mother was an expert in classical music. And they didn't go around saying, we're highly educated people. If you're so freaking highly educated, Barack and Michelle, show us your transcripts. I'd love to see them. But they won't show. Either of them will not reveal their transcripts. But yet they're going to walk around saying they're highly educated. Highly educated? My ass, they are not. Yes, they may have pieces of paper from these places, but I don't think they're educated. They're certainly not educated in economics, finance, basic common sense. They're educated in grifting, but for that, they haven't even priced their grift properly. I mean, if they were accomplished Madoff-style grifters, they would have run off with hundreds of billions. Instead, it's only hundreds of millions, but that's bad enough.
Look at the diamonds, Charles. Look at that. She's like dripping.
I know. Yeah, but you shouldn't. This sends exactly the wrong message. Go into public service, it's rabble rousing. It's, we're going to hurt you when we get into office. You better give us money now, and then we maybe won't hurt you. That is, that's like nice business you have over here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. So but the good news, guys and girls and Martians and aliens, is that the survey results here coming in on how this is going, it is a disaster for Kamala Harris. She's getting the opposite of a bounce in the polls. Yeah.
You know what I wanted to ask you, Charles? Don't you think it's weird? Like, definitely the biggest celebrities in the Democrat Party are Barack and Michelle Obama. Isn't it kind of stupid to not have your candidate there the night that the big people are there? Why was Kamala Harris not there? I mean, we know why, but what's your opinion of that?
The story is that Biden still has power, and Biden's pissed at Obama, and she didn't want to necessarily thumb her nose at her current boss, and I'm not buying into that. I think that it's not true, frankly, that Barack and Michelle are the biggest celebrities in the Democratic Party, and frankly, it doesn't matter who the celebrities are. What matters is the money. And what matters is the storm that's coming, because the core of the Democrat Party, even today, is not hard left lunatics like AOC and Bernie Sanders. That is not the core. If Joe, in fact, did get 81 million votes or whatever he's claiming, I would guess that the progressive share of that might be maybe 15 million, 20, 25 million, the hard left. And so to appeal to the hard left, you're alienating RFK, you're alienating and his group, and you're alienating what used to be called Reagan Democrats, people who are centrists. They may come from a background where they feel that the Republican Party abused them, so they're just more loyal to Democrats out of family reasons and history reasons and community reasons. But they're fundamentally moderate. They want a strong country. They want a country that's not involved in unnecessary military ventures, because it's the people who don't have a lot of wealth and don't have a lot of income who end up seeing their sons and daughters going into the military, and they're the ones who get wounded and killed, et cetera. So, to have these people worshiping at the altar of perpetual war and then doing their level best to crush the private sector. You look at Robert F. Kennedy. I don't particularly like most of his economic proposals, but I admire what he did in the Hudson River in New York State. The Hudson River used to be so bad you couldn't swim in it.
Yeah.
And Robert Kennedy relentlessly went against, frankly, GE, who was one of the major pollutants of the Hudson River. And in the Hudson River today, you can swim in it because of him. And
you could fish in it. he
his
said.
skepticism, shall we say, about it. Yeah, and the CIA, his skepticism about the CIA. Surely his family has paid a heavy price for the abuses and criminality, frankly, of the CIA. And then I actually like some of what he has to say about the medical profession. So if you're going to slot him into roles in those areas, I'm interested. If you're going to put him anywhere near the economy, I'm not interested. And then I think he does need, I mean, because he's a Kennedy, he's rich and a celebrity and all this kind of stuff. He's not a boss or being on a team. And frankly, nor was Trump until he became president. So,
Well, no,
I
wait,
question
hang on a
how
second,
he would
Charles.
work as part of the Trump team.
Hang on one quick second. He's been on complex litigation teams. I know you don't agree with this, but I think a good position for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would be Attorney General, because he'd be able to use his legal expertise in all of those areas, pharmaceutical and health, and doing stuff against the deep state. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But there, we have this report from ABC News that he's going to drop out on Friday and endorse Trump. And then I think, is her name Christine Shanahan, whatever the vice presidential, what's her first name? She was on a talk show
Shanahan.
saying
Shanahan.
Yeah, Michelle or something. She said, so it's like, oh, why are you like putting this out? Just do it. But whatever. Could be good.
Yeah, I think it's masterful. And I also think there should be a role for Tulsi Gabbard, probably in the military the management process, whether as Secretary of one of the services or Secretary of Defense. I mean,
yeah, make her Secretary of
this
Defense.
This tells a lot, when you look at it. Right, but when you look at it, Tulsi Gabbard ran for freaking president as a Democrat and got more votes than Kamala Harris in the primaries, because Kamala got none. I got none. I probably, if I'd run, I might have gotten somebody to do one write-in vote somewhere.
Yeah.
But Kamala got nothing. Nada. Right? And Tulsi at least got some. And the Kamala Harris administration has decided to bird dog Tulsi Gabbard on flights. Right? Tulsi is not a conservative or a Republican yet. But I mean, to do that to a former serious candidate, credible candidate, to be the Democratic nominee in 2020, for Biden and Harris to do that is spiteful, it is vengeful, it is beneath contempt. But it's not like Trump is saying to Tulsi, you have to do this, or to Kennedy, you have to do this. These are Democrats saying, you know what, I'm looking at this. There's things about Trump I don't like. There's things about the Republican brand I don't like. But I certainly don't like this shit show that I'm seeing in DNC. I don't like the way they handle the non-primaries. I don't like the way they launched a coup against Biden. The policy proposals, a tax on unrealized gains. Are you fucking out of your mind? Anyway, I don't think, as far away from things as I am right now, and as filtered, or as I'm not getting as much news as you might be getting, but what I see is a disaster for whoever planned this convention. It's a disaster for them, and in particular, watch some of the spontaneous videos that are coming out of Black people talking about how happy they are being lectured to by people who live in 4 mansions on the strength of their public service. I mean, there's somebody called Laverne, somebody or other on Twitter, who's hilarious, got all these videos. There's a bunch of people who are going out into the hood, white and Black people, interviewing people in the hood and asking, what do you think of this? And it's not going well. The pitch is not going well out of the DNC.
They all say Trump, right?
People who are going to vote.
Even little kids were saying Trump.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, there's one, Libs Defiant L's or something like that. Has got something up there saying, with these idiots from DNC saying, Black women are going to make a difference in the 2024 election. And then somebody adds, because they're going to vote for Trump.
I think it's true. Because like women don't care. They're like, listen, the economy was better. My kids had more food, and the little kids, I'm seeing they're interviewing people through the window of the car, and they just don't mince words. They say, look, I'm for Trump.
Yeah.
And then the little kids start screaming Trump, jumping around the car. It's funny as hell. They're really getting some good video over there. Oh yeah. Speaking of Chicago DNC, this is good, Charles.
Go for it.
I was going to say, our Ben Berglam, who interviewed me one time for his podcast, he confronted crackhead Barney. Well, serial criminal Uniska Wahala Kano, I believe is how you pronounce her real name. But he's kind of questioning her. This guy is great. He's taking no nonsense from anybody, fighting terrorists and criminals alike.
Well, yeah, I mean, sadly, many people don't see through the bullshit, right? But enough decent voters are going to get out there, they're going to cast a vote, they're going to make sure their vote is not tampered with. And the margin of difference, I think, between people who are enthusiastically in favor of Trump now and enthusiastically in favor of Kamala is vast. Indeed, Musk just did something on X, a poll of 5.8 million people. And again, those are not scientific, they're not going to be reflective of what actually happens in the Electoral College. But 5.8 million versus the standard sample in a political poll is about 3,000. And it's overwhelming for Trump. It's like over 70% for Trump. Hillary Clinton, why ain't I ahead 50 points? Well, Trump is, And this time, unlike 2020, when I and others thought that Trump was going to win, there was enough margin of safety there. Looking at the basement campaign versus what Trump was doing in the end of as many as like 5 or 7 rallies towards the end per day, I assumed Trump would win. And who knows, maybe he actually did win. But this time, we've been living through just a disastrous period under Biden and under Harris. And this idea of vote for me, Kamala Harris says, I can wear Converse sneakers and pantsuits. And just when I get into office in 2025, I'll fix the problems I created. I mean, that's not a winner. And look at that poll.
It's 73% for Trump, 73.2 Trump, 26.8 Kamala, 5.8 million. Now, Charles, let me ask you something, though. These supposedly scientific polls, because the sample size is so much smaller, doesn't this massively much larger sample size kind of negate the errors in some way? Like the fact that it's so much larger, isn't this technically more accurate than any 3,000 poll could be?
In theory, but again, there's a lot of bias in this because
it's
people like
X, right?
You and we like X and we like what's going on and we're inclined to participate in something like this. A real poll has to sample, it has to determine a few things. It has to determine a headline, it has to determine what is the percentage of likely voters generally across the country, Democrat, Republican, Independent. Okay, but then you have to get into specifics and you got to do that same estimate. You should do it by congressional district to get it done correctly. And that's, I think, around 4,000. Oh, sorry, by county, you should do it. And it's around 4,000 counties. And then you should build it back up to state. And then you should think about the impact of the Electoral College. So it's a big job to do it right. And it costs a lot of money to do it correctly. And how can you be sure today? You used to be able, 40 years ago, when you dialed somebody's number, you knew exactly who you were speaking to because most people had a landline. Yeah. But now you don't. You've got no clue. You call me and you're going to have an area code that is not where I am right now.
It's interesting, Charles, though. When Adam Sharp used to be making all kinds of videos about Twitter when he was still in Washington, D.C., it's this real-time polling that he equated to how efficient it was and how quickly they can learn things, sort of like exactly what we're looking at there. But I think we're going to need to continue this part of the conversation in the First Amendment forum, because I know you're on a very tight travel schedule today. People are going to be able to join us in just less than 5 minutes on odyssey.com/@crowdsource the truth. That's the most economical way people can access the sponsor-exclusive content and support Crowdsource the Truth. Keep this reporting going for as little as $3 a month and a 58-cent Odyssey fee. People can get onto odyssey.com/@crowdsource the truth. You've got Substack there as well, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. Thanks to everybody who is sponsoring the show.